The other thing is, to be honest, like the Parti Québécois and the NDP have had a lot of power in this situation, in this minority government situation, because they're able to leverage the fact that the governing party needs their vote to get their to get their agenda passed. Like there is a lot of like the service extension and the CRB, like the extension surrounding that. A lot of it was made so because of the NDP. So they have a lot of power in this situation. So for liberals, the liberals now, because of their successful management, we can say that, like I can say that they successfully managed COVID uh, in Canada. So because of that, a lot of Canadians are, you know, they're quite willing of putting them in my majority. And the polling has been clear that if an election was called right now, uh despite the uncertainty, the liberals are the clear favorite to form a majority. So that's why I feel like uh Prime Minister Trudeau wants to he wants to take advantage of that political fact and just call an election. He said that the tactic of opposition parties in June was to stall his legislation in the House, and he said that in late June, he said, "quote We have seen a level of obstructionism and toxicity in the House that is of real concern." But like, I don't think that is necessarily true. The leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, has asked the Governor General not to heed of um, the Prime Minister's advice of dissolving Parliament. Uh, he's saying that, like, he's been saying that, like, their MPs have been critical and have been playing a critical and constructive role in the minority parliament since fall 2019, and that his party has helped pass important bills like legislation uh, to report on the progress of reducing Canada's greenhouse gas emissions, as well as like the COVID COVID emergency measures, and and a lot of those other bills. And also uh, the leader of the Conservative Party, Erin O'Toole, has also come out against the potential fall election. He said this past week, "My biggest concern right now is the potential fourth wave of COVID-19, and we shouldn't be rushing to an election. Mr. Trudeau always seems to put his own self-interest ahead of the interest of Canadians." He also said that the Conservative Party is ready to go to an election if anything comes up. So, like my my bottom line is, it's all politics right now, and unless the fourth wave is really really considerable, which I don't think will be, because like Canadians are getting vaccinated quite fast. But I don't think the like I feel like all the excuses of political of having the election or not having the election, they're not based out of something real. It's like political actors are just trying to put themselves in the best situation, and that goes for the Prime Minister and the Liberal Party, and the Conservative Party, and the NDP and the Greens, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, you touched on a few points that I'm gonna go back to. One big thing is timing, like the timing. Why a snap election now? A good thing you brought up is the polling. The polling suggests that most Canadians aren't don't want change in their government at the moment. So what it means for the Liberals, like this is a perfect time to go because we can potentially get a majority government. Most minority governments don't, at least in the past, like I think the past two prime ministers, the minority governments didn't last more than 2 years. You know, due different circumstances of why snap elections were called, or etc. But usually, and right now I believe we're at the 2 year mark. So we're getting around the same time as most minority governments would last. So when when the Liberals became a minority government, we were already expecting a very short term anyways. Now the timing is perfect for the Liberals in a weird way. It's a weird thing to say during a pandemic, but the timing is really perfect. As you said, their handling of the pandemic has given them a bit more popularity with Canadians. And what's interesting is that there's two sides to why the opposition parties don't want an election, right? You have the NDP and Jagmeet Singh. He has been able to wield power because of the fact that the Liberals really do need him to pass legislation. And Jagmeet Singh is not I'm not talking about him as a person. I'm just talking about him in terms of politics. He's a type of guy. He really tries hard to get his way. He really tries to get what the voters want from him, right? So in that sense, he really works. He works really hard. In other words, he's a tough merchant, to work with, because he sometimes he doesn't budge on certain things. He wants certain things. If you don't put that in, then then it's an issue. And he always talks about how if you want to do something, you can do something. If you want to do it, you can do it. So and the context in which he said that was towards the Trudeau government, because I think they were talking about what's happening with the water in First Nation communities, right? And then the interviewer asked him, "Wait, so why do you what do you think is the next step for the Liberal government, or what do you think the Liberal government should do?" And then Jagmeet Singh is if they want to fix the issue right now, they can fix the issue right now. Obviously, it's always more complex than what Jagmeet Singh is saying. It's not nothing is such black and white, but that is also why I believe the NDP and Jagmeet Singh don't want to go to election, because they're in a good position right now. He gets to deliver on a lot of promises that he promised to the voters. He gets to help push his own agenda, and then he wields the power for the time being as he builds up that popularity, right? So I don't think the NDP right now wants to go in an election regardless. And now there's the other side, the health aspect, which he has talked about. We're in a pandemic. The fourth wave is coming. Etc., etc., and we'll get more into that later. That's one of the reasons why the NDP doesn't want to go into an election. I believe for the Conservative, also, I think there's a political element to it as well. They know the Liberals are doing really well in polling at the moment. They're if we go into election right now, it could be really bad for us. And it would be Aaron O'Toole's first election too. So I know he wants to go into his first election with the best, best environment possible for him to win, and that is not this summer. You want to wait a bit longer. So there's the political aspect to it, there's the health aspect to it, which is interesting. But yeah, I think, and we're gonna talk more a bit about the fourth wave. But just looking at what Dr. Theresa Tam has said, she's in the situation where the fourth wave gets really bad, Canada is looking at a more localized approach to measures and lockdowns. It's not going to be as blanket as before, and the reason for that being is that we're in a different situation now. We're facing this fourth wave with the vaccine. We have the vaccine at our disposal, which will help us fight that fourth wave. So if there were to be a lockdown, from what Dr. Theresa Tam said, it's more localized, which is why I believe there will be a snap election. Because if Dr. Theresa Tam is saying that, I think it was on a global, you better believe that Justin Trudeau feels comfortable enough to go into a snap election. So health-wise, he's in a good situation because he has the vaccine or whatever. So I don't think he'll lose any voters based on that. And then just in terms of polling, he's doing really well. So this is the perfect time for Justin Trudeau to go into an election.
Yeah, and I read somewhere that it's a gamble both ways, of holding an election or not holding an election. It's a gamble because, first of all, minority governments are unstable. So if he continues through, he tries to go through this minority government, then you don't know what's going to be the next SNC Lavalin or we charity scandal. You don't know the next one, and if the next one comes and you're not in majority, like it's much easier to defeat the government.